Maya never thought her life would turn out this way. At 23, she was supposed to be struggling with student loans and figuring out her career, not walking down the aisle toward a man 50 years older than her. But here's the thing about life. It doesn't always go according to plan. It all started 2 years ago when Maya took a job at Riverside Manor, one of those fancy retirement communities where rich people spend their golden years. She needed the money. Her mom was sick. The medical bills were piling up, and her degree in literature wasn't exactly opening doors to high-paying jobs. The work wasn't glamorous. She helped elderly residents with daily tasks, listened to their stories, and made sure they took their medications on time. But Maya didn't mind. These people had lived full lives, and she found their stories fascinating. That's when she met him. Richard Hartford walked into the community lounge one Tuesday afternoon like he owned the place. Well, technically he kind of did. He was one of the wealthiest residents there, living in the penthouse suite with a view of the entire city. He was 73 years old, but you wouldn't know it from the way he carried himself. Tall, well-dressed, with silver hair neatly combed back and bright blue eyes that seemed to catch everything. While other residents shuffled around in slippers and robes, Richard wore tailored suits and expensive watches. Their first conversation happened by accident. Maya was restocking the library when a book fell from the top shelf and nearly hit her. Richard caught it midair with reflexes that surprised them both. "Careful there," he said, handing her the book. "Hemingway's not meant to cause concussions." Maya laughed. It was a genuine laugh, the first one she'd had in weeks. "Thanks. That would have been an embarrassing way to get injured at work." "What's a young woman like you doing reading Hemingway anyway?" Richard asked, settling into a nearby chair. "I thought your generation was all about social media and reality TV." "Wow, that's pretty stereotypical," Maya replied, but she was smiling. "I actually have a degree in literature. I love the classics." Richard's eyebrows rose with interest. "Is that so? Then you're wasted here changing bedpans and organizing pillboxes." "It pays the bills," Maya said simply. She didn't mention her mom or the mounting debt. She'd learned not to share too much about her problems. But somehow, over the following weeks, she found herself sharing everything with Richard. He started requesting her specifically whenever he needed assistance, which wasn't often. Richard was remarkably independent for his age. Instead, he seemed to just want company. They'd sit in the garden or the library talking about books, art, politics, and philosophy. Richard was different from anyone Maya had ever met. He didn't talk down to her or dismiss her opinions because of her age. He listened, really listened, and he challenged her thinking in ways that made her see the world differently. He told her about his life, about building his business from nothing, about traveling the world, about losing his wife 5 years earlier to cancer. The way he spoke about his late wife with such tenderness and pain made Maya's heart ache for him. "I miss having someone to share things with," Richard admitted one evening as they watched the sunset from the terrace. "Money can buy comfort, but it can't buy connection." Maya understood that feeling more than he knew. Since her mom got sick, she'd been so focused on work and bills that she'd lost touch with most of her friends. She was lonely too, just in a different way. 6 months passed like this. What started as casual conversations became the best part of both their days. Richard introduced Maya to classical music, took her to art galleries on her days off, and even helped her mom get better medical treatment through his connections. Maya's mom worried about the friendship. "He's an old man, honey. What does he want from a pretty young girl like you?" "We're just friends, Mom," Maya insisted. "He's lonely, and honestly, so am I. There's nothing wrong with that." But deep down, Maya knew it was becoming more than friendship, at least for her. Then one night, Richard asked her to dinner at a real restaurant, not the Manor's dining room, somewhere fancy downtown. Maya wore the only nice dress she owned and felt underdressed the moment they walked in. Over wine and food she couldn't pronounce. Richard looked nervous for the first time since she'd known him. "Maya, I need to tell you something," he began, setting down his fork. "These past 6 months have been the happiest I've been in years. You've brought light back into my life. You've made me feel alive again." Maya's heart started racing. She knew what was coming, and she didn't know how to feel about it. "I know I'm old," Richard continued. "I know people will judge us, but age is just a number, and what we have is real. I care about you deeply, and I think you care about me too." "Richard, Maya started, but she didn't know how to finish. I'm not asking for an answer tonight, he said quickly, but I want you to know that I'm serious about you, about us. I can give you a life you've never dreamed of. No more worrying about money. No more watching your mother suffer because you can't afford better care. I can take care of both of you. The practical part of Maya's brain lit up like a Christmas tree. No more debt. Her mom could get the treatment she needed. Maya could finally breathe without the constant weight of financial stress crushing her chest. But was that a good enough reason to be with someone? Over the next few weeks, Richard courted her properly. Flowers delivered to her apartment, weekend trips to the coast, thoughtful gifts that showed he actually listened when she talked. He never pressured her, never made her feel uncomfortable. He was a gentleman in every sense of the word. Maya's friends thought she'd lost her mind. He's 73 years old. What are you thinking? But her mom surprisingly came around. After Richard personally arranged for her to see a specialist who finally got her pain under control, she pulled Maya aside. I know this seems crazy, her mom said, but that man looks at you like you hung the moon. And more importantly, you smile again. I haven't seen you this happy in years. Life's too short to worry about what other people think. 3 months after that first real date, Richard proposed, not with some huge public display, but privately, in the Manor's garden where they'd spent so many evenings talking. Marry me, Maya, he said, holding out a ring that probably cost more than her car. Let me spend whatever time I have left making you happy. Maya thought about everything. The age difference. What people would say. Her feelings, which were real even if they confused her. The security he offered. The genuine connection they shared. Yes, she heard herself say. Yes, I'll marry you. The wedding was small and quick. Just a few people at Richard's estate, which Maya had never seen before. It was massive, like something out of a movie. As she signed her name on the marriage certificate, officially becoming Maya Hartford, she felt a strange mix of emotions, excitement, hope, relief, and somewhere deep down, a tiny voice of doubt that she tried very hard to ignore. She was married now. To a 73-year-old millionaire she'd known for less than a year. What could possibly go wrong? Moving into the Hartford mansion felt like stepping into a different world. Maya had seen the place during the wedding, but living there was completely different. The house was huge. Not just big, but actually huge. 3 floors, 12 bedrooms, a library that could fit her entire apartment inside it, and a dining room with a table that could seat 20 people. There were paintings on the walls that looked like they belonged in museums, and every piece of furniture probably cost more than she used to make in a year. On her first morning as Mrs. Hartford, Maya woke up in a bed so comfortable she thought she was still dreaming. Silk sheets, down pillows, and a mattress that felt like sleeping on a cloud. Richard was already awake, sitting by the window reading the newspaper. Good morning, my dear, he said with a warm smile. I've had breakfast prepared for us on the terrace. I hope you're hungry. Breakfast was waiting outside. Fresh fruit, pastries, eggs cooked exactly how she liked them, and coffee that tasted better than anything she'd ever made at home. A woman in a uniform who introduced herself as Patricia the housekeeper poured their coffee and disappeared silently. I have staff for everything, Richard explained. Patricia manages the house, Thomas handles the grounds, and Marie does the cooking. You don't need to worry about any household tasks. Just enjoy yourself. It sounded perfect. And for the first few days it was. Maya spent her time exploring the house, reading in the library, and getting used to having people do everything for her. Richard was attentive and sweet, bringing her gifts almost daily. Designer clothes, jewelry, expensive perfume, things she'd never dreamed of owning. But by the 4th day, something started feeling off. The mansion was too quiet. Even with the staff moving around, there was this heavy silence that hung in the air. The kind of silence that made you whisper even when there was no reason to. And Richard, while loving and generous, had some odd habits. He was obsessive about certain areas of the house. The West Wing specifically. There was a whole section of the mansion that he said was under renovation. The doors were always closed, sometimes locked. When Maya asked about it, Richard would wave his hand dismissively. Just some old rooms that need updating, he'd say. Nothing interesting. The contractors have made such a mess over there. Best to stay away until they're finished. Fair enough, Maya thought. Rich people probably renovated their houses all the time. But then she noticed other things. Richard's study was always locked when he was inside. He'd disappear in there for hours, telling her he was managing his investments or handling business matters. But Maya never heard him on the phone. Never heard typing or any sounds of work being done. Just silence behind that heavy oak door. One afternoon, Maya tried to bring him lunch while he was in his study. She knocked softly. "Richard, I thought you might want something to eat." There was a long pause. Then she heard movement, like something being quickly put away. The lock clicked and Richard opened the door just wide enough to stick his head out. "That's very thoughtful, darling, but I'm not hungry right now," he said. His smile was warm, but he didn't open the door wider. "I'll be out in an hour or so." Maya tried to peek past him, but he smoothly stepped out and closed the door behind him, locking it immediately. "Actually, I could use a break," he said, taking her arm. "Let's have lunch together in the garden." It was sweet, but Maya couldn't shake the feeling that he was hiding something. Then came the nights. On their 5th night in the mansion, Maya woke up at 3 a.m. Richard's side of the bed was empty and cold. She sat up listening. The house was dark and still, but then she heard something. Voices, faint, muffled, coming from somewhere below. Or maybe above. The mansion's size made it hard to tell where sounds came from. Maya got out of bed and walked to the door, opening it slowly. The hallway was dark except for small night lights along the baseboards. She listened again. There it was. Voices, definitely voices. And they were coming from the direction of the west wing. She took a few steps down the hallway, her bare feet silent on the plush carpet. The voices got slightly louder, but she still couldn't make out words. It sounded like Richard talking to someone, but who would be here at 3 a.m? Maya was about to investigate further when she heard footsteps behind her. She turned quickly to find Patricia, the housekeeper, standing there in a robe. "Mrs. Hartford," Patricia said quietly. "Is everything all right?" "I heard voices," Maya whispered. "Do you hear that?" Patricia tilted her head, listening. "I don't hear anything, ma'am. Old houses make strange sounds sometimes. Pipes settling, wind in the eaves. You get used to it." But Maya knew what she'd heard. Those weren't house sounds. Those were voices. "You should go back to bed," Patricia said. And there was something odd in her tone. Not unkind, but firm. "Mr. Hartford wouldn't want you wandering around at night. It's easy to trip in the dark." Maya went back to the bedroom, but sleep didn't come easily. When Richard finally returned around 4:30, she pretended to be asleep. He slipped into bed quietly, and within minutes his breathing became slow and steady. The next morning, Maya asked him about it over breakfast. "Richard, where were you last night? I woke up and you were gone." He didn't even blink. "I have trouble sleeping sometimes. Old age, you know." "I went down to the library to read for a bit. Didn't want to disturb you with the light." "I thought I heard voices," Maya pressed. "The television, probably," Richard said smoothly. "I had it on low." "I'm sorry if it woke you, darling." It was a reasonable explanation. But something about the way he said it, so calm and practiced, made Maya's stomach turn. Over the next 2 days, she tried to settle in. Tried to enjoy her new life. Richard took her shopping, bought her a new car, and introduced her to his lawyer to add her name to some accounts. Everything seemed perfect on the surface, but Maya couldn't ignore the growing feeling that something was wrong. She started noticing other strange things, like how the staff never made eye contact with her for too long, how they'd sometimes exchange glances when Richard gave certain instructions, how Patricia always seemed to appear whenever Maya got too close to the West Wing. One evening, while Richard was in his study again, Maya decided to explore. She walked through the mansion, looking at all the family photos on the walls. There were pictures of Richard as a young man, Richard with his late wife, Richard at various business events. But then she noticed something odd. There were gaps on the walls, lighter rectangles where pictures had clearly once hung. And in the library, she found an album tucked away on a high shelf. Inside were photos that weren't displayed anywhere in the house. Richard with a woman who wasn't his late wife. A younger woman, maybe in her 30s. They looked happy, posed in front of this very mansion. The photo was dated from 8 years ago. Maya's heart started beating faster. Who was this woman? Richard had never mentioned anyone else. She heard footsteps and quickly shoved the album back on the shelf. Richard appeared in the doorway. "There you are," he said pleasantly. "I've been looking for you. Shall we have dinner?" Maya forced a smile. "Sure, I was just browsing the books." That night, lying in bed next to her husband, Maya stared at the ceiling. She'd been married for almost a week, living in luxury she'd never imagined. Everything should be perfect. So why did she feel like she was living in a beautiful prison? And more importantly, what was Richard hiding in the West Wing? Maya couldn't take it anymore. It had been exactly 1 week since the wedding, and every day the questions in her mind grew louder. The mysterious voices at night, the locked study, the West Wing that was supposedly under renovation but never had any workers coming or going, and that photo she'd found in the library. The woman with Richard smiling like she belonged there. Like Maya belonged there now. Who was she? What happened to her? Tuesday morning, Richard announced he had an important meeting in the city. Something about a merger that required his attention. He'd be gone most of the day. Will you be all right here alone? He asked, kissing her forehead. I can cancel if you'd like me to stay. No, Maya said quickly. Too quickly. I'll be fine. I have some books to read and I thought I might call my mom. Richard smiled and squeezed her hand. You're wonderful, you know that? I'll be back before dinner. Maya watched from the window as his car pulled away, driven by Thomas. She waited another 10 minutes to be sure he was really gone. Then she went looking for Patricia. She found the housekeeper in the laundry room, folding sheets. Patricia, I'm going to spend the day relaxing. I don't need anything. You can take the afternoon off if you'd like. Patricia looked uncertain. Mr. Hartford prefers I stay on the property during work hours, ma'am. Well, I'm Mrs. Hartford now, Maya said, trying to sound confident. And I'm saying you can have some free time. Maybe go into town, do some shopping. After some convincing, Patricia agreed. Marie the cook was already off on Tuesdays, and Thomas was with Richard. For the first time since moving in, Maya was completely alone in the mansion. Her heart pounded as she walked toward the West Wing. The main door was unlocked. That was the first surprise. Richard always made it seem like this area was sealed off, but the door opened easily when she turned the handle. Maya stepped inside and immediately knew something was wrong. There was no renovation happening. No dust, no tools, no smell of paint or construction. Instead, the hallway was clean and perfectly maintained. Paintings hung on the walls. Fresh flowers sat in a vase on a side table. Someone was taking care of this area. Recently. Maya walked slowly down the corridor, her footsteps muffled by the thick carpet. She passed several closed doors before coming to one that was slightly open. She pushed it wider. It was a bedroom. A woman's bedroom. The bed was made with beautiful linens. There was a vanity with makeup and perfume bottles arranged neatly. Clothes hung in the open closet, dresses and blouses in various sizes. On the nightstand sat a framed photo. Maya picked it up with shaking hands. It was the same woman from the library photo, but this picture was more recent. She was wearing a diamond necklace that looked very familiar. Maya touched her own neck, feeling the identical necklace Richard had given her on their wedding night. No, Maya whispered. No. She set the photo down and backed out of the room. Her mind was racing. Who was this woman? Why did she have the same necklace? Why was her room preserved like a shrine? Maya checked the next room. Another bedroom. Different style, but also carefully maintained. Photos on the dresser showed Richard with yet another young woman. She was also wearing the necklace. The third room was the same, and the fourth. Maya's hands were shaking now. Her breath came in short gasps. What was happening? What had she married into? The last room at the end of the hall had a door that was locked, but the key was in the lock. Maya turned it with trembling fingers. This room was different. It was an office with a large desk, filing cabinets, and a wall covered in photographs. Maya stepped inside and felt her blood turn to ice. The entire wall was a timeline, photos of Richard with different women, all young, all in their 20s or early 30s. There had to be 7 or 8 different women arranged chronologically. The earliest photos were from over 15 years ago. The most recent was from 2 years ago, and every single woman was wearing that same diamond necklace. Maya felt sick. She stumbled to the desk and sat down heavily in the chair. What was this? Some kind of collection? Was Richard obsessed with young women? Had he married all of them? Her eyes fell on the filing cabinet. 4 drawers, all locked. But Maya had learned something from old movies. She grabbed a letter opener from the desk and jammed it into the lock of the top drawer, wiggling it until something clicked. The drawer rolled open. Inside were folders. Lots of folders. Each one labeled with a woman's name. Maya pulled out the first one with shaking hands. Inside was a marriage certificate. Richard Hartford and a woman named Jessica Chen dated 12 years ago. Behind it was a divorce decree dated 2 years later. She grabbed another folder. Another marriage certificate, another divorce, a third folder. Marriage certificate. But this one didn't have a divorce decree. Instead, there was a death certificate. The woman, Stephanie Young, had died in an accident. Fell down the stairs in her home. The home was listed as this address. This mansion. Maya felt like she couldn't breathe. She yanked open the second drawer. More folders. More marriage certificates. Some ended in divorce, some in annulment. But three of them ended in death certificates. One woman died from an accidental overdose of sleeping pills. Another died in a car accident, brake failure. The third was Stephanie, the stairs. "Oh my God," Maya whispered. "Oh my God, what is this?" She grabbed her phone and started taking pictures. Everything. The wall of photos, the marriage certificates, the death certificates. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the phone steady. "Think, Maya, think. You need to get out of here. You need to go to the police, but would they believe her?" Richard was rich, respected, well-connected. She was just a young woman who married him after knowing him less than a year. People would say she was trying to scam him, that she was making up stories to get his money. She needed more evidence. Maya forced herself to calm down and look through more files. She found financial records showing large payments to some of the ex-wives. Hush money? And there were notes in Richard's handwriting. Observations about each woman. What they liked, what they didn't like. How to keep them happy. How to control them. It read like a manual for manipulation. In one folder, she found something that made her heart stop completely. It was a folder with her name on it. Maya Chen Hartford. Inside was information about her. Her background, her mother's illness, her financial situation. All of it documented before they'd even had their first real date. He'd researched her, investigated her, chosen her like someone picks out a car, and there was a handwritten note paper-clipped to the front. Good candidate. Financial desperation. Caretaker personality. Isolated from friends. Mother as leverage point. Maya felt tears streaming down her face. It had all been calculated. Every kind word, every generous gesture, every moment she thought they were connecting. He'd been playing her from the start. She heard something downstairs. A door closing. No, he wasn't supposed to be back yet. He said evening. It was only 2 in the afternoon. "Maya?" Richard's voice called from downstairs. "Darling, are you home?" Panic flooded through her. She quickly took a few more photos and shoved the folders back in the cabinet, trying to make it look untouched. But the lock was broken. He'd know someone had been in here. She looked around frantically. There was nowhere to hide. The window? No, they were on the second floor. Footsteps on the stairs. Coming closer. Maya grabbed as many folders as she could carry and rushed out of the office, trying to think of where to go. But she was in the West Wing, and there was only one way out. The way Richard was coming from. She turned a corner and pressed herself against the wall, hoping he'd go past. Hoping he wouldn't check this hallway first. The footsteps stopped. "I know you're here." "Maya," Richard's voice said. And it wasn't warm anymore. It was cold. Flat. "I saw Patricia leaving. I saw your car still in the garage. And the West Wing door is open." Maya's heart hammered in her chest. "Why don't you come out?" he continued. "I think we need to have a conversation about trust in a marriage." "Don't you?" Maya's mind raced. She was trapped in the West Wing with folders full of evidence clutched to her chest. And Richard was somewhere in the hallway between her and freedom. She had 2 choices. Hide and hope he didn't find her, or face him directly. Neither option felt safe. Taking a deep breath, Maya made a decision. She couldn't hide forever, and running would make her look guilty. More importantly, if she acted scared, he'd know she understood what she'd found. She needed to play this smart. Maya stepped out from around the corner, still holding the folders but trying to look calm. "Richard," she said, proud that her voice only shook a little. "You're home early." He was standing at the end of the hallway, perfectly still. His face was unreadable. Not angry, not surprised, just watching her with those cold blue eyes. "My meeting was canceled," he said quietly. "I thought I'd come home and surprise my wife. But it seems she's the one full of surprises today." "I can explain," Maya started. "Can you?" Richard took a step forward. "You went into a part of the house I specifically asked you to avoid. You sent my staff away. You broke into my private files." His eyes dropped to the folders in her arms. "And now you're stealing my personal documents." "Stealing?" Maya felt anger cutting through her fear. These aren't just documents, Richard. These are marriage certificates. Death certificates. You've been married before. Multiple times. To women who look just like me. So? Richard's voice was eerily calm. I'm a widower who remarried. That's not a crime. 3 of them died, Richard. Maya's voice rose. 3 of your wives died in accidents. In this house. And you never told me. You said you'd only been married once before. Richard sighed like she was a child throwing a tantrum. He walked slowly toward her, and Maya backed up until she hit the wall. Sit down, Maya, he said, gesturing to a chair by one of the bedroom doors. Let me explain everything. I don't want to sit down. I want answers. Then you'll get them, Richard said. But you're going to listen calmly, and you're going to understand that things are not what they seem. Against her better judgment, Maya sat. Partly because her legs felt weak, and partly because she needed to hear what he'd say. She kept the folders in her lap, her phone in her pocket with all those photos saved. Richard sat across from her, suddenly looking every one of his 73 years. You're right, he began. I've been married before. Several times. After my first wife died, I was devastated. Lost. I spent 5 years alone in this big house, and the loneliness nearly killed me. He paused, as if gathering his thoughts. So I tried again. I married a younger woman, someone full of life who could make me feel alive again. But it didn't work out. She left me when she realized I wasn't going to die quickly and leave her everything. So I tried again, and again. That doesn't explain the death certificates, Maya said, her voice hard. Richard's expression darkened. Those were tragedies. Real accidents. Stephanie fell down the stairs. She'd been drinking, wasn't paying attention. I found her at the bottom. I tried to save her, but it was too late. And the others? Rachel had problems with pills. Depression, anxiety. I tried to help her. Got her therapy, but one night she took too many. The doctors said it was accidental, that she miscalculated her dose. He rubbed his face. And Jennifer, the car accident. Brake failure. The mechanic said it was a manufacturer defect. I sued the company. It all sounded reasonable, almost believable. But Maya had seen the notes in his handwriting. The research about her. The cold calculation of it all. You investigated me, she said. Before we even started dating. You knew about my mom, about my money problems. You chose me because I was vulnerable. Richard didn't deny it. I did my research, yes. I'm a businessman, Maya. I don't make investments without understanding what I'm getting into. I'm not an investment. I'm a person. Of course you are, Richard said smoothly. But I had to be careful. I've been burned before by women who only wanted my money. I needed to know you were genuine. That you actually cared about me. By manipulating me, by using my mom's illness against me, I helped your mother. Richard's voice rose for the first time. I got her the best doctors, the best treatment. She's doing better now because of me. Would you prefer she was still suffering? Maya felt tears burning her eyes. He was twisting everything, making her feel guilty for being angry. The other women, she said, changing tactics. The ones who didn't die. Where are they? Why do you keep their rooms like museums? Richard stood up and walked to the window. For a long moment he said nothing. I kept the rooms because I felt guilty, he finally said. Each relationship that failed was another reminder of my failures. I couldn't let them go. It's not healthy, I know, but we all have our demons, Maya. He turned back to her, and there was something in his eyes now, something that made Maya's skin crawl. You know, the problem with people your age is that you think you're so smart, so morally superior. You find a few documents and suddenly you think you understand everything. His tone had changed. The pleasant mask was slipping. I gave you everything, Richard continued. A beautiful home, financial security saved your mother's life. And this is how you repay me? By snooping? By judging me? Maya stood up, clutching the folders. I'm leaving, Richard. This marriage is over. You can keep your money and your creepy house and your secrets. I don't think so. The way he said it made Maya freeze. We're married, Maya. Legally bound. And if you try to leave, if you try to ruin my reputation with wild accusations, you'll find that I have very good lawyers. Very expensive lawyers. I have evidence, Maya said, holding up the folders and pulling out her phone. I have photos of everything. Richard smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Evidence of what? That I've been married before? That some of my wives tragically died in accidents? that I kept their rooms as memorials. None of that is illegal, Maya. He took a step closer. But you know what is illegal? Breaking into locked cabinets, stealing private documents, trying to extort money from your husband by threatening his reputation. I'm not trying to extort anyone. I just want out. Then leave, Richard said, gesturing to the door. Walk out right now. But understand this, your mother's medical care stops immediately. That expensive treatment she's receiving? Gone. And I'll make sure every hospital, every doctor knows that she's the mother of a woman who tried to scam an elderly man out of his fortune. Maya felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. You wouldn't try me. They stared at each other. Maya realized with horror that she was trapped. If she left, her mom would suffer. If she stayed, she was living with a man who might be a killer. A man who'd calculated and manipulated her from day one. But Maya hadn't grown up poor and fought her way through college just to be trapped by a rich old man with a god complex. She took a breath and did something. Richard didn't expect. She smiled. You're right, she said softly. I'm sorry. I overreacted. It was just a shock finding all of this. But I understand now. You've had a difficult past and I should have been more understanding. Richard's eyes narrowed. What are you doing? I'm being a good wife, Maya said, setting the folders down on the chair. You're right about everything. You've given me so much. I should trust you. She walked toward him slowly, keeping her phone hidden in her hand. Can you forgive me for snooping? She asked, touching his arm gently. Richard studied her face, suspicion written all over his features. But Maya had learned something from him. She knew how to pretend now, too. I think I need some time to cool down, Richard finally said. We'll discuss this tonight at dinner. And Maya, give me your phone. Why? Because I know you took photos. Give me the phone and we can move past this. Refuse and we'll have a much different conversation. Maya's heart sank, but she handed over the phone. She watched as Richard deleted the photos from her gallery, her only evidence disappearing with each swipe. Good girl, he said, handing it back. Now I need to make some calls. Why don't you rest? You've had an emotional day. He walked out, leaving Maya alone in the West Wing. She waited until his footsteps faded, then pulled out her phone again. Richard thought he'd deleted the evidence, but he'd forgotten about the cloud backup. Every photo she'd taken was already saved online, uploaded automatically. Maya had evidence. Now she just needed to figure out how to get out of this house alive. Maya sat in the West Wing for a long time after Richard left, her mind working through every possible option. She couldn't just run. Richard would cut off her mom's treatment, and worse, he might come after her. He had money, connections, and lawyers. She needed to be smarter than that. She needed help. Real help. That night at dinner, Maya played the role of the apologetic wife perfectly. She smiled, made small talk, and pretended everything was fine. Richard seemed pleased, though she caught him watching her carefully throughout the meal. I'm glad we worked through our misunderstanding, he said over dessert. Marriage requires trust, Maya. I hope you understand that now. I do, she lied. And I'm sorry I violated yours. After dinner, Maya excused herself, saying she wanted to call her mom. Richard nodded, reminding her that her mother's next treatment was scheduled for Friday. The unspoken threat hung in the air between them. In the bedroom, Maya locked herself in the bathroom and opened her phone. Her hands shook as she logged into her cloud storage and found all the photos still there. Thank God. She needed to get these to someone who could help. But who, the police? Would they even believe her? Richard hadn't technically done anything illegal that she could prove. The deaths had all been ruled accidents. The marriages and divorces were legal, but those notes, those cold, calculated notes about choosing vulnerable women, that had to mean something. Maya made a decision. She opened her messages and sent the photos to her mom with a simple text. Don't open these yet. If anything happens to me, go to the police. Then she sent them to her old college roommate Rachel with the same message, and to her friend from the retirement home, David. If Richard tried something, at least other people would have the evidence. The next morning, Maya told Richard she wanted to visit her mother for a few days. I miss her, Maya said, and I think some time apart might be good for us. Let things settle down. Richard considered this over his coffee. I don't think that's a good idea right now. Please, Richard. Just a few days. I promise I'll come back and we can start fresh. Something in his eyes made her blood run cold. A calculation, like he was weighing options. All right, he finally said. You can visit your mother, but I'll drive you there myself. And Maya, I'll be checking in. Don't make me regret giving you this freedom. 2 hours later, Maya was at her mother's small apartment with a bag of clothes and a heart full of fear. Richard had insisted on walking her to the door, kissing her goodbye in front of her mom, playing the devoted husband perfectly. The moment his car pulled away, Maya's mom grabbed her arm. What's going on? Those photos you sent me, I opened them this morning. Maya, what have you gotten yourself into? Maya told her everything. Every detail. The West Wing, the previous wives, the death certificates, Richard's threats. Her mother listened with growing horror. We're going to the police, her mom said firmly. Right now. But your treatment, I don't care about the treatment. You think I want you staying with a man who might kill you? We'll figure out the medical bills. We always have. At the police station, Maya met with a detective named Lisa Chen. She was in her 40s, sharp-eyed and professional. Maya showed her everything, the photos, the marriage certificates, the death certificates, Richard's notes. Detective Chen studied each image carefully, her expression growing more serious with each one. This is concerning, she admitted, but I have to be honest with you, Mrs. Hartford. 3 accidental deaths over 15 years, all investigated and ruled as accidents at the time. That's going to be hard to prove as anything else. What about the pattern? Maya asked desperately. Multiple young wives, the same necklace, his notes about manipulating vulnerable women? It shows a troubling pattern, yes, but it's not evidence of murder. Detective Chen leaned forward. However, that doesn't mean we can't investigate. Those death certificates, the suspicious circumstances, we can request the cases be reopened. I'll need you to make an official statement. Maya spent the next 3 hours giving her statement. Everything she'd observed, everything she'd found, every strange moment in that mansion. When she finished, Detective Chen promised to look into it. In the meantime, the detective said, I'd advise you not to go back to that house. Stay with your mother. If your husband contacts you, don't meet him alone. That night, Richard called. Maya's hand shook as she answered. Hello, darling. His voice was pleasant but cold. How's your mother? She's doing well, thank you. Good, good. Listen, I've been thinking. Why don't you come home tomorrow? I miss you. I was hoping to stay a few more days. Maya. His tone changed. Come home tomorrow. We need to discuss some things. Your mother's treatment authorization, for instance. It seems there's been a paperwork issue. Maya's stomach dropped. What kind of issue? Nothing serious. But it needs both our signatures to resolve. Can't be done over the phone. So come home tomorrow, we'll sign the papers, and then you can come back to visit. Doesn't that sound reasonable? It was a trap. Maya knew it was a trap. Okay, she said quietly. I'll come home tomorrow. After she hung up, she immediately called Detective Chen and told her about the conversation. Don't go, the detective said firmly. That's clearly a pretext to get you back there. But my mom's treatment, we'll figure that out. But I'm not letting you walk into a potentially dangerous situation. There was a pause. Actually, I have a better idea. What if you wore a wire? The next day, Maya drove back to the mansion wearing a small recording device hidden in her necklace. The same diamond necklace Richard had given her. The same one all his wives had worn. The irony wasn't lost on her. Detective Chen and 2 other officers were parked down the road, listening to everything through an earpiece. Richard greeted her at the door with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Welcome home, my dear. Shall we have lunch? I've had Marie prepare your favorite. Over lunch, Maya tried to get him to talk, to admit something, anything that could be used as evidence. But Richard was too smart for that. He made small talk, discussed the weather, asked about her mother. It wasn't until after lunch, when he suggested they take a walk in the garden, that things changed. You went to the police, didn't you? Richard said suddenly, his voice flat. Maya's heart stopped. What? Don't lie to me, Maya. I have friends in the department. They told me about your visit yesterday. About the photos you showed them. Maya backed away, her hand instinctively reaching for her phone. It doesn't matter, Richard continued, walking toward her. Those cases were closed years ago. Accidents, all of them. The police can't prove anything different. But they're investigating now, Maya said. They're reopening the cases, Richard laughed. It was a cold, bitter sound. Let them investigate. They won't find anything. I'm very careful, Maya, very thorough. Do you know how easy it is to make something look like an accident when you have money and connections? Maya's blood ran cold. He was confessing. actually confessing, and the wire was catching every word. "You killed them," she whispered. "You killed your wives." "I removed problems," Richard corrected. "Women who became difficult, who threatened to leave, to talk, to ruin my reputation. I gave them everything and they betrayed me, just like you're betraying me now." He stepped closer and Maya saw something in his hand. "A syringe." "The police are listening," Maya said quickly. "I'm wearing a wire." "They're right down the road." Richard froze. His face went white, then red with rage. He looked at her necklace, understanding flooding his features. "You clever little—" The garden gate burst open. Detective Chen and 3 officers rushed in, guns drawn. "Richard Hartford, you're under arrest for the murders of Stephanie Young, Rachel Kim, and Jennifer Brooks. Put the syringe down and put your hands up." What happened next happened fast. Richard tried to run, but he was 73 years old and surrounded. Within seconds, he was on the ground, handcuffed, screaming about his lawyers and false accusations. But it didn't matter. They had his confession on tape. Clear, undeniable, recorded confession. The trial took 6 months. During that time, more victims came forward. Women Richard had married, manipulated, and threatened. Women who'd been too scared to speak up before. One woman, Jennifer's sister, revealed that Jennifer had called her the night before her death, saying she was afraid of Richard, that she wanted to leave, but he'd threatened her. The evidence piled up. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours, guilty on 3 counts of murder. Life in prison without possibility of parole. Maya sat in the courtroom and felt nothing but relief. She'd survived. She'd stopped him before he could add her name to his collection of dead wives. The marriage was annulled immediately. Richard's assets were seized and a portion was set aside for his victims and their families. Maya received nothing and she didn't want anything. Just her freedom. Her mother's treatment continued, funded by a victims assistance program and donations from people who'd heard her story. The medical bills weren't gone, but they were manageable. Maya went back to work at the retirement home. She enrolled in night classes to finish her graduate degree. She started volunteering at a women's shelter, helping other women recognize the signs of manipulation and abuse. She was asked to do interviews, to write a book about her experience, but she declined. She didn't want to be known as the girl who almost became a victim. She wanted to be known as the woman who survived. 6 months after the trial, Maya was having coffee with her mom when an elderly woman approached their table. "Excuse me," the woman said. "Are you Maya? The one who put Richard Hartford in prison?" Maya tensed, unsure what to expect. The woman's eyes filled with tears. "My daughter was his first wife, the one who supposedly died in a car accident 20 years ago. We always suspected, but we could never prove anything. Thank you. Thank you for being brave enough to stop him." Maya hugged this stranger, this mother who'd lost her daughter to a monster, and let herself cry. She'd learned hard lessons about trust, about manipulation, about how money and charm could hide terrible darkness. But she'd also learned about her own strength, her own courage, and the importance of speaking up even when it's terrifying. Maya was only 23, but she'd lived through something that would have broken many people. Instead, it made her stronger. She wore a different necklace now, one she'd bought herself, one that represented her freedom, her survival, and her future. And she never stopped believing in the power of truth.